Apex Online Racing is sponsored by Elgato, who created this lovely stream deck. For more information about the stream deck, the link is in the description below.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the AOR Hyper Energy Season 4 Formula 2 Sprint League here on the PC. We're here for round 1 and a brand new season of the F2 Sprint League in Sakhir at the Bahrain International Circuit, a track well known for its fantastic overtaking opportunities and for always being able to deliver a great race. Unfortunately, we didn't see any action here in real life due to the COVID-19 pandemic, but luckily we can go here in the virtual world like they did with the virtual Grand Prix back then. For this season in the F2 Sprint League, you'll once again be joined by the same team as last season, with myself, Rendtorff, and Jacob Hancox here in the commentary box. And now, as the drivers are just readying up for the one-shot qualifying, how do you think the race is going to be tonight, Jacob?
If anything, if last season is anything to go by, every race had its fair share of interest. Season 3 was really excellent. It went right down to the wire in terms of the championship as well. I'm very much looking forward to a similar thing, and I love the F2 Sprint League, so I'm very, very glad it's back. And I love the Bahrain Sakhir circuit as well. I think it's one of the best circuits in F1 and in F2, of course, as well.
Yes, certainly you must say, and as I also mentioned in the intro, we've seen some fantastic racing here in the last couple of years, or all the time this track has been on the calendar, and I'm sure that we'll see the exact same here tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you think about real life here in F2 at Sakhir, I can remember Charles Leclerc going for a pit stop during the sprint race, and that was incredible. But now that we are into qualifying, I'll let you take it away.
Yes, thank you, and let's just jump on board with Bylight here, as the game suggests. He's coming into turn 1, that tricky right-hander, as you go to the right, then to the left, and then to the right again, where you're just trying to maximize your exit, coming on to the second straight with the second DRS zone, a track that of course has 3 DRS zones in total. Then coming down to turn 4, a turn where we'll see a large amount of overtaking here tonight, going through that right-hander before coming into sector 2. That is just that long S's coming in here after sector 1, then it's turn right, then turn left, then down the hill into a sharp right-hander before you'll be accelerating up a hill, then down the crest once again before coming into a tricky downhill left-hand braking. First through 9, begin to brake, try not to lock up on the left-hand tyre, then go left again onto the back straight, opening the DRS once again. Then it's down here, the quite short back straight where you're just trying to maximize the speed you can get so you can get that left-hander perfect before going into the double right-hander coming up this hill here. As in the F1 cars, you take this flat out, not quite in the F2 cars, you can see just Bylight lifting a slight bit before coming into the braking zone, coming into sector 3. Sector 3 predominantly straight, coming down the second to last straight before it is it's a double right-hander, as someone said here, braking, and then it's flat out before it's just a slight kink as you take on to the main straight before opening the DRS for the final time. And coming across the line, Bylight goes P11, but pole position will go to Jaser P. Macri with a 138.0.
I think this might have been a radio broadcast for everyone, because apparently the scene is not correct. Apparently we're still seeing the calendar on the screen, so you might need to do something with the OBS to get us into showing the game.
Alright, that's interesting. Give me a sec. I'll try to change that.
So I'll just give you a quick rundown, a radio rundown of what happened. And Team Macri, a newcomer to the league, the Italian driver in the Campos, is 8/10 clear at the top of qualifying. That is incredible.
Yeah, and in 4th place we have Tudor there in 4th place, and that's Richie B in 5th. Hassman takes 6th, Heiko goes 7th, Dominic 8th, Lasher takes 9th, Darius in 10th, Barlight in 11th, Sirius in 12th, Offslaves in 13th, Steve Jackson takes 14th, Jack in 15th, and Neil Bywater takes 17th. And I'm sorry for that happened with my OBS there. For some reasons, my Stream Deck settings weren't quite right, so I was trying to fiddle around that as we came here into qualifying, but obviously it didn't work. But we're here again in for the race, luckily. And we're seeing the drivers just slowly readying up for the starting grid. One change for this season is that last season we had the fixed setups, but this season you're allowed to have a free choice of setup. You can change any parameter you want, and I'm sure many of the drivers will have utilized that in the qualifying session.
And it'll be interesting to see how much that affects the balance of the drivers and how balanced it is throughout the field, because when it comes to the F1 games, it's pretty established what the best setups are for most circuits, but in F2, that's going to be a lot less nailed on. There's a lot more exploration to be done when it comes to the setups in F2. So these drivers, we might see some people getting it completely wrong on setup, as well as some people getting it absolutely spot on. Another thing we're going to see difference throughout the field is the tyres they're running on. Heiko will be starting on those medium tyres down in P7, of course. Slightly disappointing qualifying position for the Dutchman, who was the vice champion last season. Finished P2 in the championship, was narrowly beaten out by ELZ KBL, who has not joined us for this season, unfortunately. But nevertheless, Heiko, with a point to prove, he so nearly won the championship last time out. He seemed like the favourite for the majority of the season, and he'll want to get this season off to a good start as well. And starting on the medium tyres, running the contra strategy around here could well be just the right way to do that. However, spinning off the road on the formation lap, as he's just done, a little bit less ideal for the driver in the Carlin. And 2 other drivers also going to be starting on the medium tyres. That's Of Slaves in the Univirtuosi in 13th, and Neil Bywater in the Dams at the very back of the grid, whose lap was invalidated in qualifying.
It's going to be interesting to see here with the split strategy, because we've seen it multiple times with the top 10 starting on a soft tyre, then the drivers outside starting on a medium tyre. But here it's going to be interesting to see what Heiko can do as he is inside the top 10. He is mixing with these drivers that are starting on that 1 lap old soft tyre, and it's going to be interesting to see where he'll pit contra the 2 other drivers on the medium tyre once that pit window opens.
But yeah, absolutely. Let's just go back quickly to talk about qualifying again, because it was a dominating performance in qualifying here for Macri, who takes the first 4 points of the season. Of course, you get 4 points for qualifying on pole here in Formula 2 for the feature race. And just a quick reminder, in case anyone isn't aware, the top 8 in this race will be reversed, and they will make up the front 8 of the grid in the sprint race, which will come after this feature race. That'll be a shorter race with no mandatory pit stop. There is a mandatory pit stop in this race, but the drivers will have to go at least 3 laps on each set of tyres over the course of the race, as we see them now lining up on the grid, ready to get the season fully underway. Macri with first blood in terms of the qualifying points, but who will take the big points here in the very first race of Season 4?
Yes, the final couple of drivers are just lining up, going through each other there. Some of the drivers got disqualified from the formation lap, but here it looks like all the drivers are lined up.
Yeah, that won't matter too much for them. We are going to see the lights going out early, and that's actually gone out much earlier for Tudor, who's probably the host of the lobby, and that's caused an issue as he's gone into the back of Richie B there. The rest of them now get underway, and it's Macri leading from the start, the Italian in the Campos, making true on the promise shown in qualifying by leading into turn 1 here. Flash will follow him through. Richie B challenging Sebster, despite the fact that Richie B was hit in the backside by Tudor off the start. He nevertheless is able to go up into P3. Sebster down into P4 with Tudor looking to make that P5 as he heads up the inside. In the frame of the Arden, trying to battle around the outside, but he's not going to be able to hang on. And in fact, he's going to pick up a 3-second time penalty already for going around the outside too wide through turn 4. And Tudor puts himself up into P4. Sebster down into P5.
Yeah, and as we saw, there were some yellow flags at the start, and there's more yellow flags now there, as I think that's Biolight and Off Slaves just off the track there. But earlier through turn 1 we had Lasher and Jack and also Dominic, I believe, involved in some contact. It looks like some of these drivers might be having to go in for a front wing change and an early pit stop. So already some drama on lap 1 with drivers picking up penalties and causing yellow flags.
Yeah, and perhaps a little bit rusty compared to last season. Some of these drivers haven't driven in the F2 Sprint League before. I don't know how much experience they'll have with these F2 cars, but they're very different machinery from the F1 cars in this game, and it's definitely something you have to get used to, and that certainly takes some time. And maybe we're seeing that some of the drivers here not quite as used to them as they would expect. It looks like Jack's had another incident at the very back end of the field. Tudor running wide through the final corner. That's going to open up an opportunity here for Sebster. Meanwhile, up ahead, Flash. He's a losing position. No, he's not. His car's just ghosting for some reason. It looks like there is still battling going on up ahead. Quite hard to work out what's going on at the moment. It's going to be Richie B in second, Tudor in third, or... yeah, Tudor's going to take the position away from Sebster, who is ghosted on my screen as well. I think he is going to come back into fourth position soon. And yeah, a couple of issues maybe in terms of connection, maybe desynchronization going on here, but Tudor is up into P3, I believe.
Maybe. I am having quite a hard time figuring out what is going on right now. Drivers jumping around on the positions and trying to figure out where they actually are. It looks like Tudor is up into P4, Sebster P5. Yeah.
This is correct now. This is the correct order we're seeing here. Not quite sure what happened at the end of lap 1 there. I've seen that issue happen a couple of times in the F1 races as well. It evidently seems to be an issue in F2. But nevertheless, Tudor is P4, Sebster P5, and that is the moral of that particular story. Flash still holding on to P2 with Richie in P3. So it's Campos leading from ART, I believe that is, behind, followed then by Richie B in the MP Motorsport car, Tudor in the Prema, and then Sebster in the Arden. So the top 5 all in different brands of car here. Of course, all the cars are identical apart from setup. Haspen in P6. He is the second of the Campos drivers, and he's had a clean start, looking to just build the gap to Heiko behind, who's starting to fall a little bit away on those medium tyres, but that's to be expected in the opening couple of laps of this race. Also to be expected is Macri putting the fastest lap of the race in, the pole sitter, managing to gap Flash a little bit more over the course of that last lap, but it's not outside of DRS range yet for the guy in P2.
No, but if Macri continues to put in these laps, Flash is going to have quite a hard time to catch up. Although with the DRS now, he has caught up just 3 or 4 tenths there coming into turn 4. But it looks like he'll have to stay behind. But just in the train behind for that third position, looks like Sebster caught a bit up to Tudor's there off Slaves in with a 3-second time penalty. So 2 drivers already having received time penalties at a track not really known for giving that many penalties, but the drivers nonetheless abusing the track limits just a bit too much and giving themselves 3-second time penalties. But now with the DRS, will Tudor or Sebster be able to do anything for P4 or 3 there? Tudor a bit too far back, and I think it's going to be the same story for Sebster in P5.
Heiko very close behind Haspen, though. Heiko has managed to close him up pretty quickly on these medium tyres, and when the tyres go off here in F2, they really fall off the cliff, and that might be what we're seeing from the soft tyre runners. Heiko should be looking to try and make some progress up through the field now. We are coming to the end of lap 3, so the soft tyre runners should be able to come into the pits and get a set of medium tyres on their car, should they desire. And yeah, they might have to be doing that sharpish, because Heiko is definitely looking like the fastest guy in the field at the moment, catching well up to the back of Haspen, but none of them are going to head into the pits on this lap. They're going to stay out, and Heiko will have a run at the Campos ahead of him here. They're very close to P1, but they're going to stay as they are. Tudor not going to think about a move into turn 1 either. Heiko's thinking about it, but he's not quite close enough. And that's bad news for him, because every time he gets to a hard braking zone and doesn't pass the Campos ahead, that's another portion of the lap he's going to be stuck behind what is now a slower car.
Yeah, and further behind we did see an overtake for 9th place Dominic, just going down the inside of assist there, as there was a car ghosted there for some reason. Not quite sure what is going on there. I think that was Jack being lapped there. So already a lap down for him. It's going to be a tough ask to be able to pick up some points or get that reverse grid pole position. But Heiko now behind Haspen. Haspen really looking like he's struggling there on the exit. Heiko looking to be able to catch up a bit. Haspen, of course, outside the DRS range of Sebsta and the train in front. So he'll be a sitting duck down the straights, as he has no DRS, but Heiko does behind. But with a 5/10 gap, I think it's going to be a bit too far back down this straight. So I think he'll have to be patient and wait for the straight down to turn 11, or wait for the main straight with the DRS there.
Yeah, further down the field as well, we're seeing Neil Bywater, who's also on those medium tyres, closing up to the back of Aceries up ahead as well. So it does look like this is the time for the medium tyre runners. Heiko hasn't been able to make the move quite yet, though, and that's going to be hurting him. The fact that he's been stuck for now a whole lap, even longer, behind Haspen, who locks up into the final corner, running a bit wide. That's going to give the opportunity to Heiko in the Carlin. Surely he's going to be able to make the move as Richie B pits up ahead from P3. He's going to be dropping all the way down the order, of course. Now Heiko blasting past Haspen on the straights. Nothing that the Campos driver can do. He thinks about a lunge back down into turn 1, but he can't be late enough on the brakes, and that will mean that Heiko in the Carlin is up into P5. Jack 92 is going to retire from the race. Looks like he might have had an incident out of the final corner there. I'm not sure if he got a virtual safety car or a safety car or something. I'm not being shown it at the top of the screen, but they're going very slowly.
Yeah, and on the full track map you can see it's all yellow, so I believe we have a virtual safety car. As you can see, the drivers not lining up behind a safety car or anything like that, but it looks like we have a virtual safety car deployed now. So Heiko will be looking like he'll be trying to gain some time on the drivers in front, and some of the drivers will be hoping that this virtual safety car will stay around so they can go for a pit stop and not lose so much time. As it looks like Steve Jackson has won just a tad bit on this as he's coming out the pits now. Although I'm looking at the boards just on the edge of the tracks, it looks like we have a full safety car. Yeah, it says SC and not VSC. So I think we actually have a full safety car, not just a virtual safety car. And as you can see, there is a yellow dot on the full track map that is just staying still just after turn 1 or turn 1, 2 and 3 there. So I believe that is the safety car they're catching up to. As this will mean that the soft runners will be able to pit now and essentially get a free pit stop. As most of the drivers decide to do so. Macri Flash to the Sebster. Heiko also goes into the pits. Haspen into the pits. Darius, will he go into the pits? Yes, he will. Dominic behind. I don't know about Neil Bywater. He's coming through the last couple of corners now. But it looks like we'll have most of the grid into the pits. Bywater decides to stay out and gain positions of this. Aishri's in, Bylight in, everyone else in.
For Neil, it makes sense to stay out because Neil Bywater started on those medium tyres. I'm really surprised that Heiko came into the pits. He started on the medium tyres as well. He's set on a set of fresh medium tyres. And that means that actually you have to be very economical with your tyres over the course of a race weekend in F2, because he'll have to use one of these used sets of medium tyres now for the actual race itself in the sprint race. And with tyre degradation as major a factor as it is here in Bahrain, he might even struggle to not make a stop. He might have to make a stop in the sprint race, and he's still going to have to run a set of soft tyres as well. You have to run both compounds, I'm pretty sure of that. So Heiko still has to pit once more. This is now a 2-stop race for him, and he's compromised himself for the sprint race as well by wearing out 2 different sets of medium tyres. I think this has been a terrible decision from Heiko to go in the pits. We'll have to wait and see. Evidently, the Dutchman thinks it was the right call, as everyone else around him was going to be on fresh mediums, and he thought he needed to be on fresh mediums as well. He would have been losing positions at the start of the safety car restart, being on those 5-lap older medium tyres compared to the fresher tyres of everyone around him. But I think that would have been a price he would have had to have been willing to pay. And I think this has been a poor judgment call, but we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, and you have to remember, Neil Bywater and Offslaves, they're also on used medium tyres, but they will have to pit later in the race, so they might be able to just get a bit of a gap after this safety car if they're good on the restart, and then they'll lose time further behind, of course, but they won't compromise themselves for the sprint race after this. So I'm not sure it was the best call from Heiko, but it looks like the medium runners, the guys that start on the mediums, have just been unlucky with the strategy here, with the timing of that safety car, and those soft runners have really just gotten that perfect.
Yeah, I mean, Richie B's also got quite unlucky with this one. He was running up in P3.
Actually,
He's
no.
now in de facto P6 or 7 because he came in earlier than everyone else, and that's Neil Bywater into the pits. Is he going to set? Is this going to be a set of soft tyres for the Dams car? Interesting decision for him to come into the pits. A lap late means that he'll fall down all the way down to the back of the order, but it is going to be those soft tyres. And with this safety car period, there is the hope that you will be able to run these soft tyres to the end, depending on how long the safety car stays out for.
And that is, of course, the thing, but it's going to be close for Neil Bywater if he can make it to the end. As
Richie B manages to pick up a 3-second time penalty for corner cutting and track extension under the safety car, which is never a good look. And his race has gone from bad to worse. It's something I say quite often in my commentary, that certain drivers have gone from bad to worse. And in Richie B's case, it just went from bad to worse, because that 3-second time penalty will not help him out at all. And it was already bad enough that he lost several positions by pitting a lap too early, and therefore losing out on the ability to get a free pit stop under the safety car.
Another driver who's pit on the safety car a lap later is Biolite. He is all the way down in 15th and quite far behind the safety car train, almost half a lap there, as we're seeing Neil Bywater and Lasher, the two Dams cars, trying to catch up to the train as they're also just cruising behind. But it's going to be interesting to see now with the different strategies. Of course, the drivers pitting onto the mediums, except for Heiko, will have will be going to the end. Heiko will have to pit again. The same will probably be the case for Neil Bywater, unless he is very, very lucky with the length of this safety car. Although he has filled the criteria for 2 sets of tyre compounds, that is something Heiko hasn't.
And interestingly, actually, I want to talk about the opening stint of this race, because Macri, currently sitting in P2, the Italian driver didn't dump the rest of the field in his wake like I was expecting, based on the fact that he was 0.8 of a second up in qualifying. Flash was able to hang with the Campos driver pretty well throughout the opening stint. I don't think he ever went outside of DRS range of the erstwhile race leader. And the likes of Tudor, Richie B and Sebster weren't too far behind either. Heiko is actually back into the pits now, so he's going for a set of soft tyres. So yeah, he's decided this was an error. He knows that he's going to have to put on that set of soft tyres some point before the end of this race. What that does mean is this set of tyres will hardly be worn for the sprint race, at least, so he'll be able to use that set of tyres he's just taken off in the sprint race itself. That should mean that he won't be as compromised for the sprint race as he would have been if he had got back under racing conditions on that medium set there. But now he's going to be out in 14th position. Thankfully for him, Biolite's well off the back of the field, so he doesn't drop all the way to the very rear. But nevertheless, for Heiko, this has been an absolute disaster of a safety car.
Yes, certainly, and it looks like Neil Bywater, with the length of this safety car, is able to possibly go to the end on those soft tyres if he chooses to not go flat out on them. And that is going to be very interesting to see if he can make his way up towards that 8th place that grants him pole position for the sprint race after this. And it's also going to be interesting with Offslaves, or when he decides to pit, because he's still running around and having to pit at least one more time on that set of medium tyres. But he'll surely go on to a set of soft tyres. The question is just when. Does he do it under this safety car, or if it ends on this lap, or does he choose to just try and go flat out once it comes in, and then go for a set of softs that he can just completely go flat out on that stint and try and aim for that 8th place.
And one thing about running the contra strategy, as we're seeing Old Slaves doing, as safety car will be in this lap, is that you'd want, usually you'd expect to be much, much faster than the rest of the field once you strap on that set of soft tyres at the very end of the race, because they'd be fresher than the used, heavily worn medium tyres that everyone else is running, as well as softer. But because of the safety car period, these guys with their medium tyres have been able to eke them out a little bit longer, and that should actually help them to maintain their pace towards the end of this race as well. So that's another little downside for the guys running those soft tyres, as well as the fact that they're going to have to really struggle to stretch those tyres to the very end of the race now, as we are getting underway, and Macri is already all over the back of Slaves. Side by side they go down the straight. Flash will be thinking about his move as well. He's dipped out of the slipstream for now. He's not going to make it 3 wide. Slaves actually tries to cover off in the braking zone there, but Macri will squeeze his way through, and around the outside goes Flash. Slaves down 3 positions already, as Tudor also takes advantage of the ailing Uni Virtuosi car.
Yeah, Haspen through turn 1, he's round and drops to the back of the grid there. But further up the grid, we're still seeing drivers close to each other, almost battling a bit there, as Sebs are now on Slaves. Slaves really dropping down the grid now from P1. He's all the way down to P4 and is looking to be overtaken from Sebster if he isn't able to get these tyres under control now. But coming through turn 8, that is, he gets a terrible exit. There goes Sebster. Although Richie B also able to go round the outside, now into turn 9 and 10. Will he be able to keep the... Oh, there's contact there. Sebster's round. Contact there from Slaves and Richie B there. They're still down the straight there. That is Slaves in front, and Dominic down the inside of Richie B. 2 wide there. Dominic goes to the move on Richie B. Is he able to hold it? Yes, he is. Just down the inside he goes and gets the position up. Sorry, that was actually Darius. Up into 5th place he goes. Will he be able to get Slaves now? Down from 6th place up to 5. Now, coming on to the back of Slaves. Slaves not able to get the exit there. And there comes Darius onto Slaves. Down into turn 14. Is he able to get the position and brake later? Oh, down the inside. There comes Richie B. Didn't even see him there. Squeezes Slaves out. And he's round. There's contact there. Both of them into the tyre wall. Losing a major part of their front wing. Richie B and Slaves down. They go, but Dominic now on Darius up into P4, and I believe the safety car is out once again.
Yeah, that was a hectic lap there for Slaves and everyone else around him as well. The first incident, absolutely his fault when he went steaming into the back of Sebster into turns 9 and 10. He was just way too late on the brakes with those tyres, couldn't get it slowed down, and collided very heavily with the rear end of that Arden, and Sebster will not thank him for that. However, Sebster's only down in P7 now as a result of the fact that Richie B had that incident out of the final corner. Richie B was too ambitious on the brakes into the final turn, pushed Slaves wide. Then Richie B, when he tried to lay down the power, got a tank slapper on, had to steer left, hard left, to counter steer for the tank slapper that he got, and in doing so collected Slaves. So that one was Richie B's fault, that second incident, whereas the first one was Slaves' fault. Both of them are the ones that fall down to the back of the order, so at least there's some sort of justice in that. But yeah, with another safety car, I think that's going to mix up how this race is going. Is this a virtual safety car? Looks like they might be getting back underway in terms of racing, actually.
No,
here.
it is a full safety car. The safety car came out of the grid just as
right you are.
Yeah, and it is now parked just after the first turn combination. But this means Macri is in the lead, Flash in second, and Tudor in 3rd place there. And this will mean wonders for Neil Bywater. He's on the soft tyres and in P8. And Heiko on his soft tyres, he's down in P11. So they'll definitely be able to go to the end. And the same with Slaves, as he's gone on to a set of soft tyres. But there, Flash was thinking about pitting, but he decided that wasn't the best strategy to go for. The top drivers there on the medium tyres looking to go to the end.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I suppose these guys will probably have a fresh set of soft tyres somewhere in the back. I'm not exactly sure on that one, actually. But if they do, then I would consider pitting if I was one of the very, very front runners here. But now, once they're all queued up behind the safety car, you lose that opportunity because you're going to go to the back of the order no matter what. No one elected to go into the pits, of course, apart from Richie B and Of Slaves, who, after their incident, had their damage, had to go into the pits regardless. So they've had to burn another set of tyres each, although Of Slaves was yet to pit anyway, so that won't matter too much for him. And his, it'll seem a very different safety car experience for him. Rather than leading the train around, he's going to be at the very back this time.
Yeah, going
Richie B back into the pits as well, actually. Sorry to cut you off there. So he went onto medium tyres last lap, and now this lap he's going to lose one more position to Of Slaves and go on to another set of soft tyres to the end of this race. But I don't know that Richie will have done enough laps on... Actually, he probably did do enough laps on a different set of medium tyres. No, in fact, he's going to go back onto the old set of medium tyres to keep that set that he just put on fresh for the sprint race. I think that's a pretty good heads-up decision for Richie B there.
Yeah, because you really want that fresh set of medium tyres so you can go the whole race without having a pit stop in the sprint race, because it's only the very fastest of people that can do that one stopper in the sprint race, and most of the drivers will be looking to go for that zero stopper on a set of medium tyres all through the sprint race, because of course you don't have to pit in the sprint race, one of the few races in the motorsport world where you don't have to pit.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, just going to quickly address a question in chat. This is F1 2020 we're playing on. The stream title says F1 2019. That's incorrect. However, this is the 2019 set of cars, set of Formula 2 cars, of course, because they're the only ones available in F1 2020 at the moment. So it's a bit of both, really, if you really think about it. It's kind of it's F2 2019 in F1 2020. So yeah, just sorry for the little bit of confusion there. Anyone in chat, by the way, feel free to let us know who you're supporting or to ask us any further questions. I have the chat open to my right-hand side here, so I should be able to check on it every now and again, especially while we are here under the safety car with not a whole lot going on track for this very moment. Seeing some support for Dominic in chat. Of course, Dominic managed to pick up one race win last season, Season 3, and even despite that only finishing down in 11th in the standings, he'll be hoping for an improvement. But he got a lot better towards the end of that season, and I wonder if he'll have kept that momentum up. This race is looking pretty good for him at the moment. He's kept his nose clean when many others haven't, and he's up into P5 as a result.
Yeah, that's really a thing. This race has shown that if you just can keep your nose clean, you are quite set for going up the positions there. So we're seeing some weird position changes. That's Lasher retiring from the session.
What's that about? Where is he? Is he in the wall? He's over on the left there. I think he's just retired the car. I think he's just gone into the start menu and retired the car. So I'm not exactly sure why Lasher has done that. But nevertheless, that's going to be the end of this race for the Romanian driver. We'll still have the sprint race coming up after this one, so he should be able to redeem himself there. Yeah, I think the safety car will win. I think that's a pretty decent shout, to be honest, Nick. Safety car has been leading more laps of this race now than anyone else, I believe. Yep, so that's an interesting one, unfortunately, in terms of... Because we love seeing on-track action, but it is because there's been a bit too much action that the safety car has come out. And as to why there aren't F2 2020 cars in the game, I honestly couldn't tell you. It seems like Codemasters just weren't able to get that sorted out in time, so they have the F2 2019 cars out for the moment. I think they're going to release the F2 2020 cars at some point, and I don't know whether we'll switch the cars for this league or not when that happens. Safety car is going to be staying out for yet another lap, so it's really going to be a mad dash to the end of this race.
Yeah, certainly. And just on the point of the F2 2020 cars, the plan is in this league that if they come out during the season, that we will do the switch. So if it comes out after this race, for example, we will have the change for next weekend for the new cars. So we will be constantly up to date with the newest cars possible in the game.
And that's actually quite interesting because there is a big difference from the F2 2019 to the F2 2020 cars. The cars themselves, the chassis, they're almost identical, but they have different tyres. They'll have 18-inch rims on the tyres, I believe it is, for the F2 2020 cars, and that makes the tyres behave in a whole different way to how they were behaving before. They'll look very different from the sidewall, of course, as well, but I imagine having to code the different tyre physics is probably part of the reason Codemasters haven't been able to implement it quite yet. And that will mean there's going to be a whole nother learning curve for these drivers who themselves probably aren't that used to the F2 cars as they are in the game at the moment. It's going to be a whole nother learning curve again when the F2 2020 cars come out with those different tyre sizes.
Yeah, you must certainly say, and it's really going to be interesting to see with the tyre wear how that is going to behave in the races. We've of course seen a bit how it behaves in real life but that is of course 100% races, you could say. But with the 50% races, it is 50% scaled down, of course, and it's going to be really interesting to see how that scaling compares in the game and how these drivers are going to handle that, because of course there'll be then some of the drivers in this league are also racing in the F1 leagues, so that is going to be quite fun to see them transition between the F1 tyres and F1 cars and then into the F2 cars and the F2 tyres as the safety car is coming in on this lap. So Macri will be deciding the pace as they come on to the start-finish straight.
Oh dear, that's not very good news.
No.
Sebster with a 5-second time penalty for a collision with Neil Bywater. I think there was another penalty just before that got taken away from the screen by that one. So that's going to be a shame towards the end of this race. They might be able to appeal that. I'm not entirely sure about it. But Macri really slow out of the final corner. Flash already looking to pull alongside the Campos driver, looking to really get a jump on him here. Macri hasn't pulled the trigger quite yet. Now he has, and they are underway. This might benefit Tudor the most of all, though. He was P3 in the Prema, and he's already up into P2. He'll be looking to go around the outside of P1 where Flash is boxed in on his inside. Macri goes deep into turn 1, and that will cut Tudor off. Tudor battling with Flash still, though the ART tries to hang it around the outside of turn 2, but he'll not be able to do it as Tudor in the Prema up into P2. Darius following along in P4, the second ART, who, like Dominic, has benefited from others having incidents around him. Aceries and Sebster, they're going side by side. That's Sebster in P6, taking the position from the Aceries car there. That's a Charouz Sauber Junior team by Charouz car, of course. But back up at the front, it's Macri who manages to lead, although that was a very shaky restart for him. Tudor almost had a huge opportunity, but now through turn 8, Tudor has actually had to counter steer mid-corner due to some oversteer, and Flash almost had the opportunity. Has to brake really hard to avoid crashing into the back of the Prema, as we saw Of Slaves doing to Sebster earlier in this race.
Yeah, but now look at Flash again here coming into turn 11. I don't think he'll be close enough. What about further behind Richard B then? Off Slaves and Haspen. Off Slaves getting a terrible exit onto the straight, it looked like. I was just easily driven by Richie and Haspen. So Off Slaves, his race, it went from really well to really bad. He was down in P13. But Flash, looking at the back of that Prema car up in P2, he'll be hoping that he can just nip down the inside coming into turn 1. As further behind there, we're seeing a bit of battling there. Darius there coming under pressure from Dominic, and Sebster there. Sebster going down the inside of Dominic now as they're coming onto the straight. But Dominic will be in the slipstream of Darius, so he'll have the better speed down the straight. Dominic now there, as Darius went a bit defensive. Dominic taking P4. What about Sebster? Is he able to take any positions there? No, sticks behind, but Dominic and Darius side by side into turn 1, then 2. Darius there, still on the inside, will be the outside then. Dominic takes P4. What about Sebster? Will he come from behind now and take P5, or will Darius fight back into turn 4? There comes Sebster down the inside, up into P5, side by side, through turn 4, coming into sector 2 now through the S's, still side by side there. Sebster on the inside, it'll be the outside, then all locks up on the front right there. Now he's round the outside. Darius keeps it on the inside and stays in P5.
Yeah, good driving there from Darius to hold on to that position. Sebster does have 8 seconds worth of time penalties at least at the moment, so he will be falling down the order as a result of that when it comes to the end, but all the more need to get past the cars ahead so you can start building a gap. Flash almost had Tudor into turn 4 on that last lap as well, tried to go around the outside, and then tried to go over a switchback when Tudor braked really late, but Flash almost lost the car entirely. They are battling tooth and nail for P2 at the moment, and meanwhile Macri is getting away up at the front. Tudor does not have the pace of the Campos up ahead. Flash potentially does have the pace of the Campos, the race leader, as we saw in the opening stint, but he can't get past Tudor, and that's preventing him from having a go for the race leaders like Richie B and Steve Jackson. They're going side by side further down the field as well, but Flash is lining up Tudor. Won't be close enough into the final corner, but that will give him a good run down towards turn 1. Darius and Sebster going side by side. This time Sebster has got that position on track for the time being at least. But Flash and Tudor, look at him squeezing it into the wall there. Tudor trying desperately to use any tactics he can to hold on to the position. As a result, Flash will back out of it now. Tudor holds on to P2. Flash trying to settle down. Back in for turn 3 and turn 4. Through here we go now. Through turn 3 with the DRS. This will be wide open in a moment. Here it is for Flash. Tudor has no DRS of his own. Once again, trying to squeeze the ART, but Flash having none of it this time around will send it up the inside into turn 4. Tudor can hang on around the outside, but he doesn't have the grip on the rear tyres, and that will be Flash in the ART back up into P2.
Yeah, fantastic battling we're seeing there, but further down the field we're seeing some action for P10. Oh, there's further up there, Flash, or Tudor almost going into the back of Flash there, but further behind for P10, Haspin, Richie B and Steve Jackson really going at it. Haspin in P10 now, Richie in 11th, Steve Jackson in 12th, but these drivers, I think they almost went 3 wide into turn 4. I could at least see the positions constantly change, so these drivers really wanting that final point. Of course, further up ahead, we have Heiko and Neil Bywater, and that is going to be the fight for that pole position for the sprint race, as Neil Bywater in P8, Heiko in P9 there, but further behind still battling for that P10. I think Haspin is going up in to that 10th position, but they're going side by side, coming up the hill. It's hard to focus on both battling, but there, Neil Bywater stays in 8th, Heiko in 9th, but no, there, Heiko goes for the move now, once again on Neil Bywater for that reverse grid pole position, but there, that was the final lap. That's McCree taking the win, Flash in 2nd, Tudor 3rd, but there's battling for that reverse grid pole position. Who will take it? I think it's going to be a Heiko across the line. Yes, it will be. Further behind, it looks like Richie B will take the point, the final points taking position. No, positions changing all around. Looks like Haspin, due to penalties, takes the reverse grid pole position, but Jason P. McCree takes the win in the first feature race of the season.
Yeah, that's a very, very hectic last lap. Good job for keeping track of all of it there. And that's going to be gutting, by the way, for Heiko, who thought he'd stolen reverse grid pole away on the final lap, but then with penalties falls just half a second away from the mark he needed to be. And Heiko, of course, we expect him to be a front runner in this league, and to get off to a poor start like this, the thing he needed to exercise some damage control and to make something of this race weekend was to get reverse grid pole for the sprint race, which will be coming up straight after this. But he's now not been able to get it, and instead of starting P1 in that race, he'll be starting P9. So that's going to feel so bad for the Dutchman, because he was so close to it. But meanwhile, at the front, Pino Macri taking the win here. The Italian in the Campos doing a great job to take the win. Really looked on top of it in qualifying. Flash was able to go toe-to-toe with him throughout the race, but after Tudor got past the German on the safety car restart, that gave Macri the breathing room he needed to bring home the win, I should say. So that is going to be him first. And then Flash second, Tudor, the Romanian, in third. Dominic with a great race to be up in P4 in the second of the two Premers. Darius with a similar race to Dominic, but Dominic had just a little bit more pace at the very end there. Darius will secure P5. Ace Rees also benefiting from the penalties of others to be up in P6. Sebster falling down to P7 as a result of his penalties. Haspin takes reverse grid pole, as you mentioned. Then Heiko, Neil Bywater rounding out the points with Richie B, Steve Jackson, Ovslays, Biolite, Lasher, and Jack rounding out the rest of the order, and those positions will only matter for where they start on the grid in the sprint race.
Yes, and an interesting thing to point out is that McCree, he took full points. He also got the 2 points for the fastest lap. So that is 27 points in the feature race for him. As you, of course, get 2 points instead of just 1 in F1. You get 2 points here in F2. So great race from him, really just putting that fastest lap in and making sure that he stayed in that first place to take full points. So that's really going to help him out in the championship standings.
Yeah, and just a quick question about the assists available in this league. I think it is correct that there's only racing line and automatic gears allowed in this race, in this league. I'm pretty sure that is correct.
Oh, I can just check.
Drivers will be driving without any sort of traction control or ABS or anything like that, as they are now onto the grid once again for the sprint race, and we will, of course, have the formation lap. Let's see if anyone's doing anything crazy with the tyres. Nope. They're all going to be on a set of medium tyres, and for some people, these medium tyres won't be quite as fresh as they will be for everyone else, but hopefully that won't matter too much. However, it is going to be pretty edgy towards the end of this race, so anyone that used 2 sets of mediums in that last race might struggle towards the very end of this one. And I mentioned earlier, I referenced Charles Leclerc in F2 2017, did take the win in the sprint race in Bahrain using a pit stop, which is very, very rare to see indeed. Given that this is a 50% race, that limits the amount of time you have to make up spaces after you take a pit stop. So I don't think we're going to be seeing that from anyone in the field here today. But it has been shown to be possible in real life at least. So there's Haspen leading them round in the Campos. And we had one Campos on pole for the feature race. We're going to have the other one on pole for the sprint race.
Yeah, and just to come back to the assist question, just checking, yes, it is correct. It is only a racing line and the auto gears that are allowed. Everything else has to be you driving the car. So no traction control, no anti-lock brakes, no nothing. It is just pure in the cars, although you have the racing line and the auto gears if you don't feel quite comfortable with that.
Yeah, and now as they make their way around the track, just about 2/3 perhaps of the way through this formation lap. It's going to be very interesting to see what the likes of McCree and Flash, and to a slightly lesser extent Tudor, are able to do in this sprint race, because they are starting from P6, 7 and 8. And of course we've seen that McCree was able to comfortably lead that race, no problem. But it's a different kettle of fish to make your way up through the field, to be going wheel to wheel with other cars. Not only is it more difficult in terms of you might crash into the other cars, and you have to watch out for that. You have to be aggressive with the overtakes when you need to be. You have to be able to judge your braking zones perfectly as well. But also, it's hard to keep your tyres in good condition when you're battling lap after lap. And so that's really going to be put to the test for these drivers, as well as Lasher is going to be disqualified, as well as Jack, from the session. But that's not going to matter too much, as they were already right at the end of the formation lap anyway. They will still be able to take the race start from P15 and 16 at the very back, as we are now lining up on the grid once again.
Yeah, Haspen there in P1. He's going to be looking and hoping that he can just go out into the sunset, and of course McCree will be hoping that he can go up from P8 and possibly make it a 1-2 for the team.
So here we are then, the front row, Haspen and Sebster, 2 newcomers to the league. Sebster will definitely be hoping, if nothing else, for a clean race here in the sprint race, because he had anything but in the feature race. 8 seconds of penalties to his name, but he was able to cling on to 7th position nevertheless. That is the race starting, and Steve Jackson actually jumping the start along with Jack 92 at the back of the field as well, so they're both going to have drive-thrus. But back up at the front now, and they are underway, and it is Haspen leading. Once again, it seems to be a Campos with a good start here. He'll be able to hang it around the outside of Sebster, who's not able to go side by side. He's actually under pressure from Ace Rees, and that's already Flash up into P3. Flash is the word for it, because that is an incredible start from the ART, up 4 positions already, and he is not hanging around. He wants to try and claw back the points advantage that McCree has got, because McCree is mired down in P8 for the time being. Further back now, battling Tudor and Dominic, the 2 Kramers going side by side. That's Tudor making his way up into P5, Dominic losing that position. Darius lost 3 positions off the start, so one ART going really well, the other one falling back just a little bit. Ace Rees under pressure here from Tudor, who sends it up the inside. Some wheel banging there through turn 8, but I think that was no harm, no foul in the end in terms of front wings at least. Dominic and Darius still battling there. The Kramer should be able to hold on to that position into turn 10. Ace Rees still battling with Tudor as well, not willing to let that position go lightly, but I think Tudor will get the better run down towards turn 11 and should be able to make this position his. Meanwhile, Flash up towards the front, going side by side with Sebster for P2, pushes the Arden wide, and that's Flash up into P2. What an opening lap for the German in the ART.
Flash now looking to chase after Haspen. He's just within that second, or just around the edge there. So in 2 laps time, when the DRS opens, he hopes to be within that second, because Haspen, he won't be getting any DRS from anyone. So Flash will be looking to take that P1 all the way down from, that was P7 on the grid, I believe. But Jack has pulled over to the side of the road. Oh no, he is he's had a spin coming out of turn 13 there, so his race is really not the best there.
Towards the back of the points, though, sorry to cut you off, because there's 4 cars going side by side down the main straight. They're going to be ghosting a little bit here because of that issue at the end of certain laps here. But I think that's going to be actually McCree taking several positions in turn 1. Some contact between himself and I believe that's Dominic he's battling with there in the Prema. Dominic will move back ahead. That's Darius behind him. And McCree made about 4 positions into turn 1 down the main straight, and he lost them all straight out of turn 2. Sends it back up the inside, though, of Heiko, and it was a desperate move from the Italian, who spins round in turn 4, and he'll be falling right back down to the very bottom of the order as the situation will resolve itself in terms of the display for all these cars. Steve Jackson being showed in the lead of the race. That is not correct. Univirtuosi driver has just been into the pits. He will come out, and once he goes through Sector 1, I believe the timing screen should resort themselves.
Yes, there, that is Lasher really off the track there in a battle with Offslaves there. Offslaves almost pushing him directly off the track with his rear wheels there. So not quite sure what happened there, but Offslaves really just coming in a bit too hot and might have pushed him wide. But further ahead now, Flash on Haspen. Flash is close. He's looking to go for that move sooner rather than later. The Duras won't be enabled until the next lap. So will he stick behind and just wait a bit for that DRS straight down to turn 4, or will he go for the move into turn 1? Let's see, as he's in the slipstream now. Will he go for the move? Haspen not really moving to any side there to seeing if he wants to go defensive or not. He's all the way to the left there, almost on the grass, but here comes Flash. Haspen defensive. Flash is now round the outside into turn 1. It will be the outside for turn 2 if he can hold it round there. But there, Haspen just squeezes him out there. Flash still in P2, but now with the DRS, will he be able to get the lead there down into turn 4 there? Flash from P2, it goes almost into the lead. He's down the inside. They both lock up on the front line, right? But Haspen is able to stay in P1, but now Sebster there look to go down the inside of Flash, but stays in P3.
Yeah, this is a dream for Tudor behind in the Prema as well, because he can catch up to the back of Flash, who got away from him by having such a mega opening lap. Now Flash making a bit of a meal of getting past Haspen, and that's giving Tudor just the opportunity to try and catch back up. Flash thinking about going around the outside into turn 9 and through turn 10 as well. He might get a better run with the switchback than Haspen. Down towards turn 11, he does so, and the Campos with no DRS either. This should be an easy move for Flash. Up the inside into turn 11, he'll be able to brake later. No, he won't actually. The Campos trying to hold it around the outside, but brakes too late. Runs out of track and loses P2 to Sebster as well. Tudor, behind, is going to steal P3. So Haspen losing 3 positions in one corner by battling just too hard to try and keep Flash behind. And Flash, what a start to the race it's been for him. Major kudos to him for an excellent race driven so far. And I said at the beginning of the race we were going to see which drivers were able to deal with having to come through the traffic. Flash has shown that he is more than capable of that. And meanwhile, that is the very hurdle that McCree fell at down in P10 at the moment.
Yeah, now Flash going very defensive as he is just desperately trying to hold on to P1 there without any DRS. It's going to be a tricky thing to do this whole race if he can't just get away in Sector 2 and through Sector 3 where there won't be any DRS. But further behind, we're seeing some battling for the lower points, of course. In the sprint race, you only get points for being in the top 8 and not in the top 10 as you usually see in the feature race. But now in the bottom end of the points, Heiko on Richie B. He was thinking for a second to go down the inside, but just didn't have the speed to do so.
Yeah, I think that was actually Richie B taking the position away from Heiko. Richie B looking strong here at the moment. These two drivers were two drivers who managed wins last season. Heiko managed 8 of them, Richie B only 2, but nevertheless, both of them proven race winners here in the F2 sprint leagues, and they will go way back, the two Dutchmen. Richie B, though, driving for the Dutch team as well, MP Motorsport, and he's already onto the back of Darius, the Romanian in the ART, who has been struggling since the start of this race for pace. He's not been able to hang with Dominic or the rest of the front runners either, as nearly up the inside goes Richie B. He'll have to back out of that one. That's very sensible. Looks like Lasher's had a problem out of turn 10. I think he might have spun it under traction there, but he's got going again in the dams. Meanwhile, around the outside of turn 13 is where Richie B is looking for. In fact, switches back now, gets a better run out of that one, and he should, up towards turn 14, be able to get the traction laid down better than the ART, which is struggling on the outside of the track. That'll be Richie B comfortably up into P6. Now runs a little bit wide on the exit and might, oh no, tried to get the power down too much. Really squirrely moment under traction. That gives Darius the opportunity he needed, and Richie B already had this move done, but he might have thrown it away as Darius back up the inside in the ART, and Heiko back up the inside of both of them into turn 1. Incredible stuff from the Carlin driver. It's going to be him and Richie B once again side by side through turn 1. Richie B able to brake late enough to merit some space into turn 2, but he doesn't find the traction, and that's Heiko taking 2 positions in one corner. McCree looking to do the same thing into turn 4 as he's up the inside, and now he's up the inside of Heiko, and I've seen this one before. Into turn 4, he's into the side of Heiko once again, and picking up yet another spin, and a penalty for Richie B as well. But McCree, that is exactly what happened to him earlier in the race. He dived it up the inside of turn 4 into the side of the Carlin of Heiko and spun round, and I cannot believe history has repeated itself quite that dramatically.
No, he just got a bit too eager on the brakes there. It's so easy to do whilst you're in these battles. You want to get that position as fast as possible. You don't want to lose out, but you will ultimately lose out even more if you don't just go a bit too early on the brakes and just settle it down for a bit. But he wasn't patient enough. He just wanted to go for it, and he's done it now twice.
Yeah, it's real impatient stuff being shown by the Italian driver, and he looks so good, so imperious out in the front in the opening race, but nothing of that form being shown in the sprint race here, and really struggling down there in P10, not on track to score any points, while Flash, who managed P2 in the last race, is leading the way and on track to score the full 15 for this one. Sebster's actually sticking with him pretty well in the Arden. Sebster had some good pace, just got caught up in a few
actually, sorry to interrupt you, but Haspen now going into P3 there with the DRS round the outside, but Tudor's down the inside there. Tudor keeps it now into P3 there. Haspen went for the move there with the DRS, but wasn't ultimately able to get the position now as Tudor got the DRS on the second DRS straight there coming into turn 4. So Tudor stays in P3, but Haspen just had a look round the outside, but Tudor ultimately defended well.
Yeah, just a quick moment now that there's not quite so much battling going on track. Sorry that it took so long to get to the questions in the chat. But unfortunately, I don't think we have a PS4 F2 league this season, so I don't think enough interest was shown. So unfortunately, I don't think there is anything running on PS4 this season. So apologies for that, but back to the race now. The yellow in Sector 1, that's one of the Uni Virtuosi struggling outside of the top 10. Neither of those teams going to be scoring any points in the feature race or the sprint race, as Jack will retire from the session, having been lapped at the very back of the field.
A virtual safety car.
And that's going to bring out a virtual safety car. Now, that might have been actually a crash from Jack on the inside of turn 8. I'm not entirely sure about that. But either way, that's going to bring out a virtual safety car. And I'll tell you what, I'm very glad that it's not a full safety car right now.
Yeah, same here, because that full safety car can really pull your teeth out in the end. But there now, Haspen is looking to just gain a slight bit. He was all the way up to the back of Tudor, but then had to fall back down. Of course, the drivers having different ways of using that delta time. Some drivers going into the red, then a bit into the green. Others trying to stay just around the middle. But there we go, back green again. Tudor gaining a bit on this this virtual safety car. There, he was able to just get a bit further ahead of Haspen once it went green there. Just got the jump in time. Haspen stays in P4, even with the DRS, wasn't able to get it. But down in P8 now for the points there. McCree up, overtaking Darius. So McCree there trying to get the best out of this race as possible. Of course, he didn't have the best start, but it's just trying to gain as much back as possible. And he's done that just by going into P8.
And look who he's behind now. Thankfully, he's too far behind Heiko into turn 4 there to think about a move up the inside once again. Because evidently that's not been going well for him. But this is, I mean, he's purple in Sector 1. You can see, I mean, twice we've seen him crashing into Heiko and spinning. And twice we've seen him catching back up to the Dutch, but he almost does the same thing into turn 8. Really hot on the brakes. He's just got so much more confidence and grip in this car than Heiko ahead, and he needs to accommodate for that. He will accommodate for it into turns 9 and 10. Heiko sliding it through there, and that will give him a lot worse traction on the exit. McCree will have the opportunity he needs to keep this one. He needs to make it work. He's up the inside into turn 11. Will Heiko brake late enough? No, he will not. And that means that there's no one on the outside for McCree to actually crash into this time. And as a result of that, he will go up in a P7. But his pace is electric. It's just the racecraft that's lacking at the moment for the Italian.
Yeah, you must say, and it's very unfortunate to see, because he really, as you mentioned, he has that pace, but he's just sometimes a bit too greedy, as we saw just twice in this race. But here on the overtake, third time's the charm on Heiko, he got it done and was able to just stay behind coming into P9 instead of just going for the dive, and it would have been the same outcome as in P4, but decided to stay behind and not go for the move. And that is really just some improvement we're already seeing in the same race from him, as that is Off Slaves retiring. And that's another virtual safety car. He's very much off the track.
Sure what's happened with Off Slaves there. I think that might have been an intentional retirement. But either way, because he's not done that in the pits, that's going to bring out the virtual safety car here. And yeah, so that's going to give another opportunity for some of these guys to build gaps, for some of them to close gaps down as well, because while the virtual safety car is meant to completely nullify the race, it's not quite perfect, and you can build gaps, as we saw, actually, between Flash and Sebster up towards the front. Sebster was comfortably within DRS range of Flash until the virtual safety car came out. Flash was able to get a better restart and built the gap to around 1.2 seconds, and as soon as he'd broken the DRS to the Arden behind, he's been able to consistently build that gap up and up. And Flash looking very, very comfortable in the race lead. Now, Tudor not with the pace of the front two at the moment. He's had to battle his way up through the field, so his tyres might be a little bit more worn out than Sebster's, ahead of him as well. Aspen losing 3 places after starting on reverse grid pole, but interestingly, looking like he has more pace than Tudor and actually taking him on the restart of the virtual safety car. He's caught Tudor napping in the Prema. Will Aspen have to let him back through? I'm not sure. There's no penalty given. I think Aspen's timed that perfectly. Tries to go defensive. Gets a bit of a moment out of turn 13. I think he's had to let him back through is what that was. I don't think he was going defensive. I think he was letting Tudor back through. But he so nearly timed that to perfection. In the end, I think he just went a little bit too early. But cheeky stuff from Aspen. Ever the opportunist, it would appear, in the Campos. And speaking of Campos, McCree and the other one all over the back of Richie B now as well. He passed Heiko a couple of laps to go, and now a second Dutchman is in his way. This one in an MP Motorsport car rather than a Carlin. Will Richie B go defensive into turn 1? No. McCree will dive it up the inside once again, but is looking a little bit more controlled. I say that as he bumps wheels with Richie B, forcing the Dutchman wide, and that will mean that McCree will be able to take the line for turn 2 and turn 3 and move himself up into P7. Looks like Ace Rees and Neil Bywater are battling further down as well. That's going to be Neil Bywater up into P10, but you need to be in the top 8 to score points in the sprint race.
Yeah, and just looking ahead there, Haspen and Tudor again, that 4 to 5 tenths gap there. Haspen trying to time it perfectly on the VSC restart there, and it looked like he had gotten it, but I think he was on the 10th of a second, maybe even less, to time it perfectly there with the overtake, as just trying to get that perfect exit and just go for it the second they went green. But unfortunately he had to let Tudor by, and that has lost him just a bit of time there, as it's now down to 7 tenths. He got just a bit of a moment there on the exit of turn 11, as he's now outside the DRS of that third place, or at least just balancing on that point. So Haspen now looking like he might have lost the battle for the podium positions, as he started on the reverse grid pole position, which is very unfortunate for him.
Yeah, a couple of questions in chat once again while we take a brief breather here. This is not on the F1 2019 game. This is the F1 2020 game, but F1 2020 does not have the 2020 F2 cars, as I mentioned earlier on in this race. So we have the F2 2019 cars. And as to whether Dominic can hold on to his position, P5, whether he can look for any positions up ahead, I think he's going to have to be looking in his mirrors rather, as it's McCree up the inside of him into turn 1. Dominic going for the switchback. That might be the opportunity to get a better run up the hill towards turn 4. He'll have the DRS on the Campos up ahead, but McCree's exit of turn 2 was so lovely in that orange Campos, and I think he will be comfortably ahead of Dominic, who actually gets really hot on the brakes himself, almost barreling into the back of McCree, but not quite managing to get it slowed down in time. And now Dominic will be worried about Richie B as well. Dominic's had a really solid race so far, but just starting to drop away now. Some of the faster guys who started towards the back are now pulling their way up throughout the field. And Dominic, if he can hold on to P6, he's going to do a good job here with Richie B climbing all over the back of him in that MP Motorsport car. Of course, it's not to say that Dominic won't gain any more positions, because the other drivers ahead might well have some incidents or pick up some penalties. But for the time being, it looks like Dominic has everything on his hands to try and hold on to P6 rather than looking up ahead.
Yeah, but Rich B behind there, he will be hoping to take that position, of course, with the DRS, as Dominic there has fallen outside DRS range of McCree there. McCree just trying to just get up to Haspin and P4 there, but it is a 1.4 second gap, so it's not looking too likely, but with just about 2 laps to go, it is always possible if he decides to just go flat out there in what is just a bit of clean air there now. And of course, the second he gets within the DRS range, it won't be too tough for him to get up to his teammate there. As now Richie B goes for P6 down the inside, tries to take the position, and it looks like he has into turn 1 there with the DRS. Quite an easy overtake to do, as the as Dominic there didn't have the DRS. But now Dominic with the DRS, will he be able to go around the outside of Richie B into turn 4? Let's see all their side by side coming into turn 4 now, into sector 2 then. Dominic will be down the inside, but it'll be the outside and then the inside again. They're all just so close to contact with the front wing to the rear wheel, but it looks like they've stayed clean. But oh, there goes Richie B down the inside again. So they're just battling it out for 6th place here. Dominic stays in 6th for now, but they're going side by side now as they're coming down the hill. Looks like Dominic will stay in position, but Richie B behind will have the DRS in P7, but it doesn't look like he'll have a good enough exit to be able to utilize that, so he'll just be able to hatch on to 6th place there. But McCree now, as they're about to come on to the final lap of the race, has gotten up to his teammate in the Campos, up in 4th place here. But McCree will have the DRS as they come to the start-finish straight, something Haspin probably won't. Although McCree decides to go for the move already, so that'll lend the DRS to Haspin come the start-finish straight there. But will Haspin go for the move on his teammate, or will he just let him go into the distance? Let's see. Haspin behind him, P5 opens the DRS, but it is a 5/10 gap up to his teammate, so it doesn't look like he'll be able to go for a move as they come into the braking. So no, he decides to just close the DRS. But behind there, Dominic was looking to defend from Richie B, but wasn't able to do so. Richie B up into P6 there.
But will Richie 1 run wide through turn 2 like he did this time last lap? He did, and that will compromise his traction just a little bit up the hill towards turn 4, but Dominic wasn't able to get the power down himself well enough to take advantage, and this time it does look like Richie B has made the move on Dominic. Dominic did not go down without a fight. There was great defensive driving last lap from the German, but this time it is Richie B who's going to take P6 away. Dominic falling back down to P7, but with a 3-second gap behind, I don't think he'll have to worry too much about Heiko, who honestly has not looked like he's had the pace of many of the field here today, and that's surprising based on his form last season. He was incredibly fast, and this time he's just struggling down in P8 for the moment. He's got much more pace than Darius behind, who's now 8 seconds, so Heiko at least comfortable behind, but not able to challenge the drivers ahead, and he'll be probably a little bit disappointed about that one. And meanwhile, McCree, his car, it just looks like he's driving an F1 car while everyone else is driving an F2, because he has had so much more pace towards the very end of this race. Even though he's spun twice, it seems like his tyres must be in much better condition than everyone else. But right up at the front, up towards the line, it's Flash with an excellent opening lap, and then only having to take a couple more positions from there. He was able to do so, and this will be the win for the German after a P2 in the feature race as well. He's probably going to be challenging McCree for the very top of the standings. It's Sebster across the line in second, Tudor third. McCree can't quite get Tudor before the line, so he'll be P4. Haspin P5. Dominic reclaims P6 due to penalties for Richie B, who falls down back behind Heiko as well, all the way down to P8. Goes Richie, Heiko P7, and that is everyone in the points in the sprint race today.
Yeah, outside we'll have Darius, Neil Bywater, Ace Reese down in 11th, and then a huge gap, 21 seconds, that is down to Bylight, and then, Lasher there, on soft tyres. He's gotten himself a puncture here on the final lap, so Steve Jackson will be looking to go up into P13 there. Around the outside he goes, but Latcher will be limping home with a punctured left front tyre on, but he'll be disappointed to go down into last place and P14.
Yeah, last place on track, of course, of Slaves and Jack both retiring from this race, and they will be classified, well, they won't be classified P15 and 16, but that is more or less where they are in terms of the order. So Lasher will be the last across the line with that punctured left front. Interesting that he managed to make a pit stop and still actually get a puncture on that set of soft tyres. I assume they were fairly worn from the feature race, and it's given driver of the day in this race to Macri. I'm not sure I would agree with that, because, well, he was very, very fast. Spinning around twice due to mistakes that you've made in wheel-to-wheel battling probably precludes you from getting driver of the day in my books, but he did a great job of recovering thereafter. Really, really, absolutely on fire in terms of pace. But I'm going to have to give driver of the day for the sprint race, at least, to Flash, because that first lap was sublime, and then everything thereafter was clean as you like as well. There he is, look at him on the podium, very, very happy is the ART driver. The German takes his first win of the season. One for him, one for Macri. They're going to be very, very close at the top of the standings. I think Macri will still just about have that advantage as he was able to make his way up back to P4 despite spinning twice. So good stuff from him to recover in the end. And then we will see the Arden car in P2 of Sebster, and then Tudor with his second P3 of the day.
Yeah, and if we just go on to the weekend here, this is your championship standings as it is. McCree in first place, Flash in second, Tudor in third, Sebster in fourth, Dominic in fifth, Darius in sixth, Hasper in seventh, Ace Reese in eighth, Heiko down in ninth. Very disappointing from him, not where we were expecting to see him after the first weekend. Then Neil Bywater in 10th and Richie B in 11th. Then we have Bylight, Steve Jackson, Lasher, Offslaves and Jack. None of them scoring any points this weekend. But that is your championship standings. McCree absolutely fantastic in qualifying and in the feature race, scoring all the possible points there and then scoring 8 points in the sprint race after having spun twice, but still climbing up the field. Well done to him.
Yeah, he also got the fastest lap in the sprint race as well as in the feature race. So he got maximum points for everything apart from his finishing position in the sprint race itself. I just want to say thank you to everyone in chat for the kind words throughout the stream. It's very, very much appreciated. And thank you for the questions as well. Gave us something to talk about under the safety cars and virtual safety cars as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed, because this has been a great start to the season. Macri definitely looks like he's the one to beat, but Flash doesn't look too far off his pace.
No, he certainly doesn't. And we will be back next week for the Holland Grand Prix at Zandvoort. It is going to be a new track for the F2 cars, and certainly first time I'll be commentating on that Grand Prix, so that is going to be very exciting once that time comes. But that is all we've got time for today. It's been fun commentating these two races. It's been a hell of a couple of races. These drivers just battling it out at a circuit we love to see. But we will see you next week, and until then, have a good one and goodbye.